we need this position filled. Where are you based? Let's get started. And when he said that to me, dude, like, you know, my face, like I still feel like the whole flush of my body, like, dog, if this is real, like, this will change my life forever.
Welcome back to the number 2 podcast in the world. I am so excited for our guest today, actually coming in from the number 1 podcast in the world, Impulsive's editor. Who is Kaleb Karnow?
Well, after that great intro, Kaleb Karnow is, first off, a family-first oriented person, okay? So I'm somebody who's always going to put family first. I'm somebody who's going to obviously think pretty logically about different scenarios. I'm a very conventional person, per se, in a lot of different aspects. I tend to take very risky investments kind of in myself at certain times, obviously moving down to LA. But Kaleb Karnow is a family first, risk-oriented person who enjoys to try and figure out what he wants to do in life. And currently what I'm doing right now is the videographer, editor, digital media manager for Impulsive. And I've been doing that full time for the last 3-4 years now. And I'm also doing a little bit of content creation right now, trying to build up my personal brand a little bit. And so that's why I hopped on the number 2 podcast in the world, baby.
Yes. Now, for those of you who don't know, Kaleb.
Wait. First off, I just want to say congratulations for starting your podcast. For everybody that doesn't know, Jacob has started this podcast kind of out of nowhere, and he's been able to get some great momentum from it. And from somebody who's been in the podcast game for like last 5 years, whether it's making clips or full-time videos, it's very inspiring, and it's great to see that, you know, you're taking some of my advice here or there and stuff and helping you grow the podcast. But obviously from a younger brother to an older brother too, it's awesome to see that. So I just want to say congratulations, and I love you, and continue to keep doing what you're doing.
I love you too, bro. Thank you so much for that. I think you have been one of the biggest inspirations to having started this, because I see all of the work that you do. And it really goes into one of the things that you had mentioned, and that was you were risk-oriented, but you are also very calculative based on the risks that you're taking. You are able to put together your thoughts in a way where you're assessing the risk that's in front of you based off of the choices that you have. And that really allows you the opportunity to move forward with the choice that is ultimately going to benefit you the most. And that is why I give you so much credit, because when you were in college, you were working alongside Logan Paul doing some of the video editing at that point in time, and you wound up moving that from a part-time gig into a full-time gig. But take us back before any of that even existed.
Let's go, baby.
Where did your thoughts ultimately lead you to where you are today?
Okay. Well, so yeah, we'll just start out with the getting the job. I mean, it's nice to have a long form format to be able to kind of explain this, other than going on a date with the girl and she's like, well, tell me all about it. You know what I mean? Take me step by step. And I'm like, well, we're here at the date. You know, which one do you want? You want the short, long, or whatever? So go with the long. So I think it all started around sophomore year of college. And being in fraternity at the time, that was good. I was slowly starting to get my friend group, but I was feeling a little bit stuck when it came to what I wanted to do, finding a major, trying to figure out what I wanted my next step to be. And at that time, I was pretty big into watching some motivational content. So watching my boy Gary V doing his thing. Who else is... Man, there's like, you know, fitness influencers. Like I remember seeing like Greg O'Gallagher, just like all these like random people and stuff. And I was thinking, you know, watching one of Gary's dumpster talks or something like that. And I posted about this, how it was kind of like the video that helped spark, you know, a few things here and there. But I saw that video and I'm just like, you know, I should definitely start to make more content. I think it's like such an untapped potential. And this was like maybe 2017 at the time. And everybody was kind of saying, oh, you know, like Instagram, Instagram, like it's past its prime already. Like it's crazy to think that. Like I think maybe it started in 2011, 2012, and then maybe people are saying it had its first peak around 2015, and then 2017. All I hear is, no, there's still a chance to get in the game. And I'm thinking to myself, like, all right, screw it. Let's see what we can kind of do here. And so I didn't know if I wanted to be in front of the camera or not, and I was seeing some people kind of on YouTube here and there just post something about basketball content. And so I was like, I don't know like a crazy amount, but I'm very interested in data and analytics and everything like that. So I decided that I would, what was it? I decided that after, all the data and analytics and stuff and that kind of being like my bread and butter, I would kind of form that into my basketball page and stuff. And so I started talking just to my webcam for my fucking MacBook Pro. And it wasn't the best quality, but I got the job done. I was using iMovie at the time, and I was making those videos, and it wasn't exactly what I wanted to be doing. I think I probably made about like 15 of those videos. I think it was cool to look at the different areas that I had to do to make a video. So like as far as scripting the video, doing some of the research, then being able to record, and then being able to edit, and then trying to figure out something like Mr. Beast talks about nowadays, figuring out how to be 1% better every single time. And so when it came to that, I did that for like maybe my first like 500 followers. I was doing all these different things like follow for unfollow, follow for a follow. And like, after like a couple weeks, I'd unfollow them and stuff, like I was trying everything, I was trying to figure out how to like hack the algorithm or something. But then once I decided that to not put myself in front of the camera, I started to post about 2 times a day on my basketball page, which you can still find it now. It's called The Basketball Purist if you want to check that out. And I ended up posting just repurposed highlights from the basketball Instagram page. And I did that for probably like a year and a half. And then before I knew it was built up to 100, or not 100,000 followers, 50,000 followers. And I was like, 50,000 followers, like that's crazy, but like what does it mean in the grand scheme of things? What can I do with these 50,000 followers and stuff? And it's like I think I maybe got like an Instagram story, got some money off of PayPal from that, like just trying to figure out, okay, how could I actually monetize this? I think in the end I ended up making maybe like $300 or whatever. I think that stuff's still sitting in some random ass PayPal account. I don't even know. But then it came to the point where I had to figure out something constructive to do with it. And so I ended up going and getting an internship with Matco Tools. And Matco Tools, for anybody that doesn't know, is obviously like a tool company, but they are, at the time, they were just so focused on like Facebook, and Instagram was like my bread and butter. And the best way I can describe this company is on one of my very last days, I had to put together like a full report of everything. And I told and gave a beautiful presentation. Actually, this was probably like halfway through, and I gave a beautiful presentation on why we need to start implementing Instagram stories and how it's a great potential, and I think you guys need to start like actually going for it. And they're big into Facebook too, so it wasn't like too far of a stretch, but like I told them about polls, and they were blown away, absolutely blown away. And I'm thinking to myself, over polls, you know what I mean? Like after all of these different things. And so I kind of knew that I wasn't really surrounding myself with like the people that I should be as far as the social media space. And that allowed me to just kind of realize that, and also being having to go to a regular workplace and stuff, it wasn't exactly my style. I knew I'd be able to kind of, like if I was in a higher up position, I knew I'd be able to probably be in that office and stuff. And, I'm sure we get into kind of like my remote work and everything like that soon enough, but I don't know if that would have suited me and stuff. And so I felt that at the time. And so I decided that I didn't want to do something like that, maybe go a little bit more of an unconventional path, or at least out of the tool industry, So then that led me into my summer before my senior year of college. And during that summer, I was kind of watching a little bit of Logan Paul's podcast, and I wasn't even like a big person on YouTube at the time. But then I started kind of follow his journey. I really enjoyed the podcast. I'm like, this dude's just like mad entertaining. And it got to the point before my senior year where I said to myself, I watched a Charlie Rocket episode, and that Charlie Rocket episode, one of the things that he was talking about was like the Secret, obviously that infamous movie and stuff, and I think it's a book now. And one of the things that he really harped on is just being a delusional optimist. And what that struck a chord in with me was that I could do anything that I kind of set my mind to if I just go out and at least try it, or at least it kind of just gave me the ability in my head to think that I can go out and try something that might overstretch my boundaries a little bit. So at the time, Logan had went through 3 months without posting on his Clips channel. And Joe Rogan, which is obviously was the number one podcast, probably still is the number one podcast. Number 2 podcast. Yeah. Number 3, because you're number 2, so we're number 1. You're
Sorry,
number 2. Joe's number 3. Yeah, we'll sort that out. And so Joe Rogan, and obviously his Clips channel was like going crazy, mad views and everything. And I'm thinking to myself, dude, this man Logan hasn't posted on his channel in 3 months. Like 3 months, dude, that's crazy. And so I said to myself, if it gets to that 4-month mark, I'm sending an email to him. I know a little bit about social growth, but I don't really know too much about editing, or I know a little bit about editing, but it's like I was having to teach myself just like all these things. And then the 4-month went by, and I sent that email out. I mean, it was the email essentially that ended up changing my life, which is crazy because I get to school, drive down to Miami, and I believe it's the Sunday before like one of the first days of school, and everybody kind of goes out, drinks a little bit, and I'm outside a new bar and stuff, and just like sitting out there, and I get like a little like ding for an email on my phone, and I see it's from like Logan Paul. And so I'm thinking to myself, dog, there's no way. Like, there's no way. I sent that email. I sent DMs out to everybody, whether it was manager Jeff, whether it was Spencer, who was on the podcast at the time, Mike, Logan, and just every single email that I could find. And that, he got back to me and basically just said something like, we need this position filled. Where are you based? Let's get started. And we said that to me, dude, like, my face, like I still feel like the whole flush of my body, like, dog, if this is real, like, this will change my life forever, has potential to change my life forever. And after that moment, the next like 1 to 2 weeks, I was kind of like in limbo a little bit. Like, I waited until the next day, responded back to him and stuff. And I waited until the next day. And so he, over the next 2 weeks, it was a little bit hard to get in touch with him because obviously he's huge, he's huge. And there's a lot of doubt, at least on, the parents' end and stuff, or like, friends or something, like maybe just doubting you, at least if like that's even him. And I'm just at this point, like, once again, delusional optimist. So it's like, worst thing at the end of the day, like some fucking rando just responded to my email and is just playing along with me. And so it got to the point where we were going to get, I was like almost like getting the job, and I was like, no, like, we need to actually hop on a FaceTime to like make sure this is actually real. And so it got to the point he like had to reschedule the first time and had to reschedule the second time. I'm like, God damn it, like, Dad's right, or like my friends are right, like, this isn't happening. This isn't happening. So he ended up I still remember I was chilling on the couch like with a couple of my buddies in college, and then I get like a FaceTime, and at that point we were using like a HDMI cord to plug into the screen and stuff. And so like I get the FaceTimes to my computer, and so they see like Logan Paul pops up on my thing, because I had been texting him already at the time and stuff, but like I was like, we need to hop on a FaceTime. And so he pops up on the MacBook Pro, and they're like, "Oh no way, what? This no." And so I'm running into my room or whatever. I'm hopping in my room. I had like a nasty mattress like behind and stuff like that, and like I'm on FaceTime with him. This dude at this time, he was training for KSI's second fight. His second fight was KSI, and so he was in training camp, just eating and stuff, and one thing led to another, and it ended up working out. And so I then work with him my final semester of college as I was going through college. That was like, honestly, it wasn't like a crazy slate of things. Like I was doing, it was a part-time job, but also I was going to school. It was like 12 credit hours, and like I did have BLS, which was like the hardest class. And I ended up waiting to the final thing. So either way, it kind of led me into maybe understanding how I can kind of start managing my workflow a little bit. So 6 months went by, I graduated, or at least that was COVID. So March 15th, I think it happened, and they sent everybody home. They're like, we got to close down the highways, blah, 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 blah. And so we went to, so then I was working part-time with him, and obviously I was getting a lot of pressure just from family, friends kind of asking me, "Oh, what are you doing next?" And stuff. And I'm like thinking to myself, well, I'm hoping I can get like a full-time gig with this. I don't know where it could lead to. Like I got this far, but I don't know where it can actually go. And then, yeah. And then Andre, he was the videographer. He started the podcast with Logan. He decided that he was going to move on, start his own podcast agency. And it was funny because I found that out through listening to the podcast. And I'm thinking like, okay, this could be my in. I'm really only an editor, and I've been working like the clips page a little bit, but like I'm willing to learn. Why not? So I said that to him, and I also said like, hey, I'm willing to move into the Maverick house, like I was like, whatever you need me to do, And so he didn't end up biting on that, but obviously he was like, let me go back and let me think on the whole like Andre thing, because I think at that point he kind of knew like, oh shit, like we do need that position filled coming up soon, and if Andre's seriously thinking about leaving, like we need that position filled sooner than later. So I told him, yeah, I'm down to relocate if we need to or anything like that. And he got back to me and he's like, yeah, for sure, let's do it. And then July of, I think, 2020, I moved down there, and we obviously took the trip down there together, and I've been working for him ever since. So that is probably the longest winded answer that I've ever gave to that, but I think it pretty much details 95% of kind of everything that was at least happening, and maybe not everything that was kind of going through my head at the time, because there was definitely a lot of, there's definitely like a few moments of doubt, I guess, but like I think more of the story is like just be willing to send that email, or go for that thing and try all different opportunities and be that delusional optimist.
Mm-hmm. I think one of the things that a lot of people are going to be able to take from this is the fact that you were able to identify value that someone would be able to find useful to themselves. It's every bit of what you did by showing Logan what it was that you could do for his clips channels, whether that be putting together a thumbnail, whether that be putting together the caption, whether that be putting together an example of particular snippets within the podcast that he's doing.
And to be honest, I think it's probably good that I talk about that really quick.
Yeah,
at least
absolutely.
Like touch on that, just because like that's honestly a lot of that's literally like the first question that I get back. What was the email that you sent to him that made him respond? Like, he's Logan Paul. Like, that's insane. And what I would first say to people is like, it's a lot easier to get in touch with people than you think.
Mm-hmm.
All you need to do is either send an email or send a DM, but you have to think about it from their end. What's in it for them? Mm-hmm. And so that was my whole thought process with everything. And I go through I think about my 4 years of college, and like, there's that whole cliche is like, I don't know what the hell I learned in college. Everybody says that.
Yes.
Everybody says that. And I think one thing that college did help me was like probably low key get my job with Logan, because it told me how to formulate a correct email. So shout out to Miami University for finally being able to teach me how to format an email and possibly get my job right now. But that email was crafted in a way where obviously an eye-catching subject line, something that you can get their juices flowing in a way that like isn't like every other email. No, like you have to figure out a way to slowly differentiate yourself. Don't be like ridiculous and just like throw like tons of emojis in there and be like, I have an opportunity for you. Like it's not going to work like that. But yeah, I think I'd have to look back, and I mean, maybe I can even send you it or something. I don't know. But within the first couple lines, I kind of just stated like, I see there's a huge opening for this and I would be a great fit for it because this. And I did that for like 2 or 3 lines. Go down a couple, click return a couple times and then say, this is exactly what I can provide. And then maybe just emphasize it at the very end. I'm extremely serious about this opportunity. And then among all that, that's 30% of it. Okay. The other 70% is you actually showing the work that you've done. Like, to be honest, like you can have like a pretty crappy email, but if they just watch the video that you provided, or like in my case, I sent, like you were saying, all the thumbnails, all the titles, all the timestamps that I would make of one of the episodes, then they almost have no idea, or they almost have no choice but to give you the job. And the way I always kind of like to say to people is like, you have to provide them so much value that it would be dumb for them to not want you or not hire you. And so that was the infamous email.
Yeah. You ultimately have to make something so easy and obvious to say yes to that there would be no reason for them to say no. And I think there's so much that you touched on your storyline, from ultimately where you started in the world of social media to where you are today. And I think it's so funny to think that, yes, there's always going to be that, Instagram's dead, or TikTok. I mean, think about this. Yes, TikTok is thriving right now, but when are the headlines going to come out that saying, TikTok's dying? Because obviously it's probably going to happen at some point in time, but it's not even going to be true to the point that it happens. The only thing I guess that did die, now thinking about it, was Vine. R.I.P. Vine.
R.I.P.
That was such a good platform.
Yeah, it's like nothing ever really dies unless like the app just gets like absolutely like pulled off.
Yeah.
But yeah, Vine got pulled off.
And it's tough because as we dive deeper into the different avenues and features that these different social media platforms promote, what you find is that if something doesn't stick right away, more times than not, what you wind up seeing is it just kind of going by the wayside. And what I mean by that is something like Instagram TV, something like Facebook gaming. I mean, where are those things right now? I mean, Corinna Koff wound up signing a multi-million-dollar deal with Facebook gaming, and now she's not on there anymore. Ninja signed his deal with Mixer. He's not there anymore. So it's so interesting to me what these platforms set out to achieve, the trends that ultimately lead to that thought process of these companies doing that, and ultimately where it winds up landing.
Yeah. I mean, I think about so many, like there's different examples of like Facebook Watch and stuff. Like I remember there's like the Big Baller Brand family was like big at the time and stuff. And it's like nobody, obviously they're kind of a little bit more irrelevant now, but yeah, even Facebook Watch, nobody's talking about that.
Well, what is Facebook Watch? Because I don't even know what it is.
I think it was just like, it was basically like Netflix, but like for Facebook.
Oh,
like
really?
Something where you kind of have to, I mean, you didn't have to pay for the Ball family one, but I don't know. It's just a free. I think it was free at the time for some people. Maybe you get like exclusive episodes here or there, but it was like one of the first ones to try and compete with Netflix and that subscription model.
Talking about the way that platforms promote their own services from within, I want to talk about the, so-called algorithm, okay? Because one of the things that I continuously am impressed by you is your ability to put together clips that provide value associated with those watching, but also essentially have a level of virality to them that ultimately lead to more views, more likes, more shares, more saves. And that started with Basketball Purist and now goes into the impulsive clips that are being generated from the podcast. Where do you ultimately start when thinking about what makes a clip go viral?
I mean, one of the first answers, I guess, that you can kind of go with that is just those first 3 seconds of that hook, And what's so funny is the problem is like nowadays there's so much content being pushed out, and you used to be able to probably get rid of not like you could have went like the first 7 seconds to try and get somebody's attention, or like Vine, like you got 6 seconds basically to kind of catch their attention or whatever. But nowadays you only have 3. And so you kind of have to take that into effect. And there's multiple different types of storytelling techniques that you can kind of use to keep people interested, whether it's sound effects, whether it's B-roll. But ultimately, like you were kind of saying, you want to make sure that you're providing value to them. And one of the best ways you can do that is by pulling an emotion out of your audience. So, for example, we'll go back to like, the start of the podcast when I was just talking about like my story and stuff. And like, let's just say like I want to make a clip about my story with Logan Paul. All right, well, think about what emotion you want to convey from that clip, okay? Let's just say it's inspirational, okay? Then you should first think the music that I want to put behind it needs to be something instrumental, inspirational beat. Then you need to think, let me find a nice sound bite that is 3 to 5 seconds right at the start that complements that. Then over like the middle and stuff, you have the ability to kind of go up and down as far as the audience. So it's like if your hook is good enough, then you can, like, obviously you want your clip to like always kind of be going like that, but like that's just like not really how it works. But yeah, you can use kind of like B-roll and stuff to kind of figure it all out. But the ultimate thing is like when it comes to the very end, and it's called like hook, retention, payoff. Those are like the 3 things. You want your very end to tie everything together. And it sounds like pretty normal or whatever, but you also want to be able to end on a high note as well. So if I was talking about that stuff with Logan and then just, end the clip on saying like just something crazy or maybe like controversial to end it with. And that can kind of help spark the whole game that is social media, trying to figure out how to get likes, comments, shares, saves, which if we want to dive into that too, I think I told you about the whole game when it comes to Instagram is like, I like to look at it as like a point system. Okay. So like at the 1 point level, you have likes. You get a like, doesn't really have much value, but it's better than somebody scrolling past it. There's nothing worse than I'll say that right now. There's nothing worse than somebody that scrolls past your thing, okay? But first like usually means, oh, I enjoyed the post. That was fine. I don't know if there was much that I got out of it, but okay. Second level is like 2 points, which is like, oh, you get a comment. Comment says either like I really resonated with this, or maybe like you said something in the caption that just absolutely they had to respond to it. Whether it was like, what do you like this or do you like that? Or just saying something absolutely ridiculous to where they are thinking in their head, this guy doesn't know what he's talking. Who the hell's running this account? You know what I mean? Like we post something with KSI and like Logan or whatever, and like we'll caption it, Paul brothers argue over blank, who is right. And it's like, well, shit, like no matter what happens, maybe if I don't want to comment on it, I'm at least going to like one of those comments. Like I'm going to stay on that post a little bit longer. And then there's the whole, saving it. I think saving and sharing are probably like pretty intertwined with each other. But either way, I mean, those are like the top of the top. I mean, that and obviously like resharing it to your Instagram story. That's probably a pretty top tier thing and stuff. But just understanding that point system kind of allows you to realize that, I mean, you can even look at some of your content, you know, that like you post on SmileTalk and stuff, and even some of the stuff that I'm starting to post on my Instagram now, any of the ones that end up going viral is most likely just you sharing a piece of valuable information, or it's you striking a chord with that person emotionally by either your caption, your soundtrack, or anything that you say that could be controversial.
One of the things that I've noticed when I'm putting together clips, when one pops off, is I will take a step back and be like, wait, why did this one do so well?
And you'll send it to me.
I'll send it to you and I'll be like, why did this do so well? And you're like, well, because you hit like all of these points.
Everything.
And I'm just like, wait, that's so true. Now, I'm not saying I'm so good and I didn't even mean to do it, but like I literally accidentally did it and it did take off. But that is something that I've needed to remind myself, is that there is a method to the madness. There is a formula that you can put your content through for it to be enjoyable and for it to gain traction. And I think a lot of content creators just need to keep that in mind, because far too often I'm not looking through the boxes that need to be checked, but I'm rather just coming up with a clip, and I'm not good enough to just come up with a clip just on my own. But every once in a while I get lucky when I do hit some of those checks.
Yeah. It's that beautiful saying that over time it just almost becomes intuition.
Mm-hmm.
And also, like, I've been doing it for like 6 years or so, as far as trying to figure out viral clips and everything, to where, like, if you're physically not interested in the clip, like if I'm not, you know how many clips of Impulsive that I've watched? If I'm not interested in it by like the title and the thumbnail or the hook, that's a problem. You kind of have to make stuff at least that resonates with you, or that you're like pretty passionate about.
It's one of the things that it makes me think about one of the clips that I've made in the past about this matchmaker that I went on a date with. And, you know, it's like the clip, like it had a hook at the beginning. It was a story that people were following. And then at the very end of the clip, the girl who I had on the podcast literally wound up like asking, wait, so did you go out with her again? You know, and then that's where it ended.
Oh, so good. That cliffhanger.
Oh,
because then everybody's like, I would not go out with that girl again.
Right.
Or they're like, you know what? Maybe you should give her a second chance.
Yes. And then that's when the comments started coming in, or that's what ultimately led traffic into the podcast episode itself, because they wanted to know, well, what did I say after that?
Yeah, you know what that reminds me of is our infamous Island Boys clip. Like, that went mad viral. And the amount of people who then went from that TikTok clip or that Instagram clip over to our main podcast was insane. And people probably still, actually maybe a little bit less now, but at first, man, when they started podcasts, people underestimated clip culture in that they didn't understand maybe how somebody would want to go from a short form clip to a long form podcast. And now I think you're seeing that it's night and day. Like, if you have a podcast, like, you're doing yourself a disservice if you don't put out at least like 2 clips a week. And I think I even told you that, like, you started and stuff, and it's like, there's nothing wrong with doing something as a hobby and stuff. But like, if you're coming to me and you're telling me, dude, why am I not growing? And you're one only like a few episodes in, but also you're not like posting any clips. It's like, how do you expect to get people to know that you even have a podcast in the first place?
Yes. I think it's so interesting to hear what people's expectations are for the certain things that they have. I'm a part of this group called like the Emotional Support Network for Podcasters, you know.
Wait, what? How many people are in that?
There's a couple hundred, and I don't know.
Wait, is it a Facebook group?
Yes, it's a Facebook group. So I don't post anything in there, but sometimes I So two things. One, part of me is like, okay, how are people asking these questions? Or I'm like, you shouldn't have a podcast if you're asking these questions. But like I said, I'm joining the podcast support group, not like the elite members of the podcasting network. And then also sometimes I forget that I literally have a brother who is helping one of the best podcasts in the world, in which any question that I may put out there is just something that I could ultimately ask you and get an answer back for.
Definitely.
But it's like, some of these people, they'll just be like, well, why aren't I growing? And it's like, okay, well, do you have like an Instagram? Do you have, I don't have a Facebook, but like what they do is they start asking like, well, do you have these things to market your podcast?
For sure.
And they're like, no, I just put it out on, what's it, like Spotify for podcasts or something like that. And it's like, okay, so
which I'll tell you right now, anybody who's only putting their podcast out on an audio platform, there is almost no chance that you'll be able to either get new followers or go viral. There's no way. I mean, I've listened to hundreds of people go on recently. There's this one girl, she runs the social media for or the like podcast socials for Diary of the CEO, which is like one of my favorite podcasts to kind of listen to as well. And she was just saying like, like kind of like the same thing with us. We post on those platforms, but are we going out of our way to try and figure out how to growth hack on Spotify? Spotify isn't doing anything other than putting down the top podcasts.
Yep.
So.
Exactly. And that's why, what I've been able to notice is that my growth is strictly because of Instagram clips. Single-handedly, the only thing that has truly helped me excel are the clips that I've been pushing out on Instagram, because they get pushed out to the short or the Reels feed. They get pushed out to my followers. They get shared by the people who have been on the podcast, who the clip is about, and then it goes to their followers. And then that's when we start sharing the link for the full episode. So without that clip culture that you were talking about, I don't think that there are half as many things that would have gone viral had it never existed. I mean, but then you have those like Sam Silik, who goes ahead and posts like a 45-minute long YouTube video. Probably doesn't do anything in relation to shorts or clips or anything like that. But he's got this army of people behind him that are all doing it for him.
How does it even, I don't know how it happens.
No.
It must be maybe it's something in Miami water, dude. Like we just got like a virality thing going on. Who knows, dude? That's crazy.
Well, I want to take a step back once again from everything that we've talked about and acknowledge the fact that you've been doing this for 6 years, that you have confidence amongst your abilities and you have the knowledge to be able to generate clips that will go viral, that will be able to capture the people's attentions, that will be able to add value. But my question to you is, what do you credit the confidence that you have to be able to perform those tasks?
I think a lot of the times the confidence, at least in the past 4 years that I've been able to kind of understand, maybe in the past 2 years, is once you complete a hard task, it just ends up giving you a little bit more confidence that when something else hard comes up, you're able to push past it. One of my big examples from that is when I think about like one of the fastest turnaround times that I have for Impulsive, and like, dog, sometimes it's like 24 hours. Like the most recent one was Mark Cuban, and we recorded on, usually we post on Tuesday, but we recorded on Tuesday then, and since we recorded on Tuesday, we had to end up pushing it live on Wednesday. And like, I put on so many hats when it comes to Impulsive, whether it's like I'm having to catch a flight to Dallas.
Yeah, real quick, take us through what it is that you do with Logan Paul's Impulsive podcast.
Okay, so I am the videographer, so I'm the guy behind the camera who's actually filming everything. I'm the editor of the main podcast. I manage the digital media, and what kind of goes along with that in all of those platforms is managing an assistant who I'm able to give notes to on the clips. I travel around with the boys wherever they go. So I guess you can call that like production, producer or whatever. And I think that nails a decent amount of it. Yeah. So yeah, at the end of the day, it's like, 4 different jobs kind of like compiled into one and stuff. And that's kind of, it's good. It's like a double-edged sword, like I read that book, like Think and Grow Rich or something like that, the Napoleon Hill one or something. And he was saying one of the things you got to do if you want to like make a lot of money is just specialize like in one activity and stuff. And so I'm still trying to figure out exactly what, I think my specialty at the end of the day is editing, but I do think there's something so beautiful about touching so many different areas of a workplace. And I think it helps with your creative ability just to get it out there. Mm-hmm. And if my job was like only editing the podcast, then I wouldn't know how to film. I wouldn't really know too much about cameras. I wouldn't know that I should be getting to LAX 2 hours before or like, checking my bag like an hour and 20 minutes or whatever before boarding or something like that, just so I don't, just because they stop checking bags at a certain time, there's just like all these small things that like creatively, I think it helps me out just to like fully express my creative ability. So like there's a lot of different things that I have to do, but I think it helps me out a lot. And then, so if we go to the whole Mark Cuban situation, I'm taking a flight out on Tuesday morning from LA to Dallas, and then we're doing a podcast in the middle of the day. So like I'm already having to wake up early for that flight. Yeah. Then I'm having to lug around, Please look on my Instagram and look at all of the equipment that I have to lug around. I think obviously by the time this is out, I will have posted this one thing where I show the 100-pound bag that I have to carry around. And that bag is just one of the bags. Like sometimes I have to carry around like all 4 of them or something, which physically it's kind of like impossible to really do that. I'm always asking for help from Ubers. I'm always asking for any help I can with those things, because those things are heavy. 100 pounds, 90 pounds, like the total is like 300 pounds. Like it's ridiculous. But come to enjoy it at the end of the day, like here and there. It just sometimes where it gets a little, whatever. Mm. But yeah, so we record the podcast for like 2 hours. Of course, Mark Cuban wanted to go for like 2 hours. Yes. It's funny because we usually do like an hour, 15-minute podcast, and then he wanted to do like 2 hours. Like, fuck, man. Like there's like a thing, like every 15 minutes of a podcast usually ends up equaling like 45 minutes of my time as far as editing the podcast. Okay. So I'm like, fuck, man, this dude's he's doing like an extra 45 minutes. Like that's that's a lot of stuff and stuff. And
well, you were up till like 3 a.m. that one night that you were editing his podcast.
Yeah, dude.
Because I messaged you in the morning when I woke up at 6 o'clock, and then you were messaging me back. I'm like, what is going on?
Dude, insane. Like you just got to take like cat naps or whatever. Because the problem is like you can definitely function fine the next day, but it's the next day that you just, a wall hits you. So you just have to get through it. But we get finish the podcast, and it's like, I still have to set up, tear down. So it's like, then we tear down the podcast, and then I have to catch the flight back to LA since we're not staying in Dallas. So I'm literally there for like 12 hours, not even, taking a flight back to LA, and on my Uber to the airport, and then even on the flight, I'm making proxies, editing the podcast. And then I get to my spot, and I still got like a little bit more of the podcast to edit, and I still got to take an hour Uber drive back to my apartment. And in that Uber, I'm also like editing a little bit and stuff. So it's like I'm always on the go. And then like I'll post on my Instagram like at like 4 a.m. that I like finally finished up the episode. Yeah. Just for the episode to go up 5 hours later, once it has to go through like review team and, Logan and Mike and everybody gives the okay on it, which at the end of the day, it is so much stuff and it becomes very overwhelming at times. But what comes along with that, I really do take a step back, and it helps me just be like extremely grateful for it, is I just feel like such a sense of accomplishment when I do all those things. So tying it back all together, when something hard comes up, I'll think about like, dog, I put together like a 22-hour day, like a few weeks ago. Like I could definitely push through my arm getting tired when I'm manning the camera. Like it's not that difficult to kind of get through those situations and stuff. And you kind of just have to figure out where your line is, figure out maybe how to pass it a little bit at certain times, figure out where, if you pass it too much, it could actually be a detriment to yourself. Yeah. But nonetheless, figure out where your line is, try and cross it at certain times, touch the fire a little bit, and, continue to take on creative, endeavors, something that actually continues to interest you over time.
Well, and that's right. You have had the opportunity to learn so much based on all of the experiences that you've had. And through that, you've refined your skills. Are you utilizing these skills that you've learned to do additional projects outside of Impulsive?
One thing that I'm kind of doing now is just building up my personal Instagram. The reason I want to do that is, not only to see like, oh, do I still got it? You know what I mean? Like, like I've been building up Impulsive for so long. It's like, I know what goes viral on there, but like, how can I get myself some virality? And so I've been doing that, and that's good. Obviously, like, I'm not trying to sound bodacious. I don't even know if that's the right word, but I do get like a ton of opportunities coming to me, but also you're at the top. Everybody's asking you for advice. Everybody's asking you to work for them, but I think you just got to make sure you're, journal a little bit, figure out what your true priorities are in life. And I think about this all the time. Like, I'm only doing things that are going to make me happy, whether it's, whether it's my job or just anything within like my social circle and stuff, because if you're not doing things that make you happy, somebody else isn't gonna help you with that. Or they could, but like one of the beautiful quotes that Tom Bilyeu always talks about, what you think about yourself when you're by yourself is the most important thing in life. Yeah. So just like making sure at the end of the day that you are always doing things that end up kind of making you happy a little bit.
What are some of these things that you're producing and the clips that you're making out on your personal Instagram right now? What's it all about?
So my page right now, I'm still trying to hash out everything. There's definitely different avenues that I can go down. So the overall broad arching thing is empowering people to kind of take a hold of their content and be proud in putting out their content. And so what kind of stems off of that is, one, maybe showing them some of the behind the scenes with Impulsive and showing them how I function and how we as a community function. And maybe they can kind of take a learning from that. Or maybe they're just entertained, which is cool also at the end of the day. But what sometimes comes across with entertainment is like you learn something just like as a result. The second thing that I try and emulate a lot is just giving people advice as far as like podcast tips, social growth tips, and video, some videography tips and stuff. Like that's not as much as my bread and butter, but like anything when it comes to editing and stuff, like I know a lot of it, I know a lot of it. And then that third archetype, which it's interesting because it's also your differentiating factor too, is people who want to just hear your life. And I've always struggled a little bit with like thinking, I don't know, like who the hell wants to hear my life? When you kind of like reverse engineer it and think, well, maybe by me talking about my life, it's going to help somebody out there who's like just like confused. Yeah. And I'm like, dog, I think about that thing with Gary Vee and that piece of content that I saw and stuff. And it's like, well, shit, if like he did that and he inspired me, then maybe by me just making an Instagram post talking about X, Y, and Z, I'm able to influence the next culture and stuff.
And there's such a fine line between wanting to do something that has an impact strictly based off of what it is that you want to do versus kind of curating your content to make that impact. Because, it's like I can try to definitely curate more targeted questions. And I do think that I definitely should. But, sometimes if I'm only thinking about, what particular question I want to ask, that may lead to an answer that I want to potentially pull from that person. If we don't do some of the casualness and some of the deeper questions that aren't necessarily these hard-hitting ones, we also may never even get to the point of which it would be beneficial, advantageous, or powerful enough to ask that question and receive an answer that's worth people hearing and what that person would be comfortable enough in saying.
That's actually very beautiful. I've never heard somebody break it down like that. I recently heard from this other podcast, Modern Wisdom. Actually, no, it might have been Diary of the CEO, one or the other. They literally think about every single step of the process when a guest is coming in. They'll somehow Sean Evans type, research, try and figure out what type of music that they like to listen to where they're walking in and it's playing and they're like, oh, this is a vibe. Like, how'd you know? How'd you know I like Taylor Swift? It's like, oh, okay. So there's that. And then the whole like setting and stuff too. I mean, obviously if you have just a setting where it's only in Cleveland, Ohio or something, like it could be tough. But like if you are cultivating a very like hardcore, hard-nosed dude and then you put for our podcast, we did Arnold Schwarzenegger and we did his inside of the, what is it? It's the gym, his Venice gym.
Okay.
And it's just like, it's nice. It feels normal for him to be in that setting.
Mm-hmm. It's really cool that you bring that up. And I do think that it's powerful for you to think about what it is that would allow someone to feel comfortable more at home or help them get into the zone. Because I was at this event that Shauna Porter, one of our guests, had put on just this past Thursday. And all of a sudden they started playing Ray Shremmer's By Chance, and once that came on, I was like, let's go, baby. Yeah. And that it put me in a mindset, and in some which ways, I don't know if the right way to say it's like boosted my confidence, but it was almost kind of like it put me into a zone where I didn't care if anyone was looking at me or what they thought of me at that moment. I mean, I wasn't going crazy by any means, but I was just kind of like vibing. Yeah. And what's kind of funny too is that at that moment, had anyone looked at me that didn't resonate with that music as much, they probably would have been like, well, I want whatever that guy's on. Well, what put me onto that was the music, and the atmosphere. And I think that you're so right. There's so much that we can do to be strategic about how we make people feel to help us accomplish what it is that we're setting out to do.
I mean, we're humans at the end of the day. So it's like, I mean, especially when it comes to like podcasting, it's all about getting the best conversation out of that person. So making them feel the most comfortable that they possibly can.
Yeah. Who's been your most favorite guest on Impulsive?
My most favorite has been Mike Tyson. Mike Tyson has been my favorite. He hotboxed the shit out of that studio. Yeah, that man was crazy with that. I mean, he took obviously multiple grams of mushrooms and stuff. I mean, there's so many. I mean, he had the pigeon come on the podcast, and then I ended up editing the teaser for that episode too for Logan's main Instagram and stuff. So it's just like there's so much going on and the culmination of everything too. It's like I don't even smoke, but I was like, oh my God, like I'm just gassed out in here. Like I'm probably looking like a lightweight, I'm like, if you probably look back on some of the camera work, it's probably a little shaky at times because I'm like woozy. He's good. He's up there. So he's number one. I'd say number two, just because it's how much it's changed my life and his mentality and stuff, was probably Charlie Rocket the first time that he came on. I actually got to meet him I got to meet him the second time he came on, which was like shortly after I moved down to LA, and I actually saw him then at a party like a year or two later, and kind of I think told him, you know, how much he helped change, you know, at least my mentality a little bit. But he was great. And then we had on 6ix9ine. And 6ix9ine, we were like, come on, that's it was an iconic podcast because he had just been out, like he just got released from jail.
Yeah.
This was like, what was so crazy about that situation is not only his 8, 9, 10 security guards, but also it was nuts as far as, you know, I always like to think about numbers at the end of the day. So I'm like, 6ix9ine, like I look on Breakfast Club, like in both of the interviews that he's doing, and this dude's pulling like at least 10 mil. Like, what can we do with this guy though? Like, you know, I like to think we are a better and this isn't even just because I'm working with them. I quite literally think that Logan and Mike might be some of the best interviewers in the game right now. Like, there's no doubt in my mind. Like, the fact that I'm being able to be entertained behind the camera says a ton. Yeah. But like, I think about all these other podcasts, and I don't know if I'd be able to man the camera or something like that, or just like sit back and check it out and feel like I've been entertained for an hour and 15 minutes like Mike and like Logan do on a constant basis.
No, you're so right. I mean, Mike and Logan, they are entertainers.
Entertainers at the end of entertainers that turn into podcasters.
Yes.
Mike, obviously Logan a little bit more than Mike. Mike, he didn't like, he was like more in between everything, trying to figure out like what he wanted to do. Like if he was going to do like a, you know, his first iteration of the Night Shift was like a news show type thing. And then they started the podcast. And so now I think Jeff likes to coin it a OG into the podcasting space, which is just hilarious to think. Also, well, we're on the topic, drink Prime, baby. You got to get that plug in there. Let's go. Non-paid, but you know what I mean? Maybe we could do something Prime. You know, get a couple cases. I already got a couple cases sent to my house.
That's right. Send some to SmileTalk with Jacob. We'll get it on the table on every single podcast.
Bro, all these people have like Liquid Death on there and stuff.
No, we don't mess with that.
Nobody's drinking that, dude. Nobody wants water, dude. They want that damn Prime.
Prime only.
Yeah.
No, I you know, one of the points definitely that I wanted to hit on too was with like Mike. I just like, because you know, when you were living in Los Angeles and I was coming to visit you, you know, I met Mike and I met Logan, and also just like wonderful people to meet in their own setting, because you see them in front of the camera and you see them doing their entertaining, but what's kind of fun is that they're just great guys to just meet. They're bros, you know. And I think another thing that's really cool, especially with Mike, is he just has things that go on around him and things happen around him. And you just know that you're going to have a good time if you're hanging out with Mike. Yeah. It reminds me of my buddy Justice. I'm just like, hey, I don't know what we're getting into tonight, but I'm hanging out with Mike / I'm hanging out with Justice, and we're getting into something fun no matter what.
100%, dude. He always knows the best restaurants since he's a food guy now. Yep. Like he's a new food guy. Knows the best club spots, you know, and quite literally one of the best socializers and networkers that I know. Yeah. He's crazy. Yeah, I mean, I still remember also my first, I mean, I remember, we could talk about this. My first interaction with Mike was like, I think I had shown up like early to Logan's house, like on the first day. And there was like, it was a little quiet and stuff. I'm like, oh shit, okay. Like, I think Danny might have let me in and stuff. You know, Logan's old assistant. And then I walk in and like Mike's sitting in the living area right next to the conversation pit and stuff. And he just was so interesting. He's like, you know, like almost like right from the start, it took him like a half a second and it clicked. He's like, oh shit, Kaleb, you know? And it was just like the most genuine, like, interaction and stuff. And I think that just like set the bar, you know, that set the bar and stuff, and how he's a great guy. I mean, I'm not even just saying this because they are you know, because they're my employers or whatever like that. Like, both of them, both Logan and Mike, are genuinely like the best down to earth dudes and stuff. And Mike is incredible at just, the dude could talk to a wall.
Dude,
So it's just like,
literally.
yeah. He might actually talk to walls. We don't even know. We don't know, dude. We don't know. I don't know what he does in his free time and stuff, but he's fantastic, bro.
Yeah.
He's fantastic. And then my first interaction with Logan too, I was in the garage and stuff, which was kind of like, is like the studio too. And I'm already there, and Logan's coming in late. I think we were recording a podcast with like Bryce Hall or something for my first day, and he's running a little bit of late. He had like PT or something like that, and he coming in on like a skateboard or some shit, and he starts almost like kind of like, he comes in through the door, he starts to almost kind of like walk past me or whatever, and then like it just like clicked out of nowhere, you know. He's like, oh shit, no way, let's go to Kaleb. I'm like, yeah, dude, I was like nervous as shit, you know. But he both of them, you know, I mean, everybody welcomed me with open arms and stuff, and I mean, it's been smooth sailing ever since.
Yeah. It's nice to see and hear about everything that you've experienced realistically within just a short period of time. And with that, I'd like to wrap everything together with what makes Kaleb smile.
What makes me smile a lot of times is being able to live in the moment and not have to think too much about the future. I do think if there's anybody out there that's kind of struggling with a lot of things in life, one of the big things that you should do is write down a goal, like anything, just get it out on paper, have something to go forward to and to look forward to in the future, and, you know, do your best to make actionable steps to achieve that goal. But most importantly, just do your best to live in the moment, man. Like, enjoy the moment. Like, if somebody's like really like pissing you off or whatever, just think, you know, they're probably having a tough day. Or like, if you're really getting, like, I get frustrated sometimes at the airport, and it's just like, at the end of the day, think about what you could be doing other than being at the airport waiting for your flight, or like freaking out because you might miss your flight. Dude, there's, what is it, humility or whatever at the end of the day, trying to understand what exactly you could be doing, or the situation that you're in now, and your ability just to kind of reverse engineer it and just think like, I'm so grateful to be in this situation and with these people, and I'm going to continue to live my life to my maximum capabilities, and we all get one life.
Yeah.
That's the most, it's like weird, you know, it's like it's a beautiful thing. It could be a scary thing, but you can also use it kind of like as a beautiful thing. Like, we're all living this life, and I think whether you're talking about Romans who are doing stuff hundreds of thousands of years ago or whatever, or you're probably thinking about future generations and stuff, I think most importantly, it's just going to all be about living in the present.
Mm-hmm. Where can they follow you?
You can follow me at Kaleb_Karnow, and that's mostly kind of, we'll say TikTok and Instagram. You can also find me on YouTube. I'm not posting as much just yet. I kind of dabbled in stuff. There's a few long form videos on there. Maybe they'll become suggested based off of this podcast, because this podcast should be going to the fucking moon.
That's right, baby.
That's right. No doubt. But yeah, once again, dude, keep killing it with the podcast. Keep just keep having fun and interesting conversations with people. I think you're in such a unique scenario too with the podcast, in that you are very good at knowing when to maybe let the guests shine, and also feeling them out and understanding just that they are what people are kind of coming for at the end of the day.
Absolutely.
So like, you need, whether you can take this podcast wherever you want and stuff, but I think your ability just to make people feel comfortable and walking in, sitting down, and at every single point in the podcast is it's probably one of your best qualities. So continue to keep taking this thing to the moon. SmileTalk to the moon, baby. Clip that, baby. Clip that.
Awesome. Thank you so much for coming on, Kaleb. I love you.
I love you too, brother.